The history of the telephone. Many years ago, before the invention of the telephone, the only way to communicate with someone who lived far from you was to write a letter. But this could take a long time. Mail traveled very slowly in ships, trains, or on a stagecoach. It could take weeks or even months for a letter to arrive. In 1860, a faster way of delivering mail was developed. It was called the Pony Express. A letter could now be delivered across the United States in only 10 days. Until the Pony Express, it usually took from 25 days up to several months for a letter to go that distance. Stations were built every 10 miles along the Pony Express route. Riders would ride to each station as fast as the horse would go, and then change to a new horse at the station. Every 75 to 100 miles, a new rider would take the mail bag. They rode day and night until the mail was delivered. But if there was an important message that needed to be delivered, 10 days was still a very long time. Then, in the 1840s, a new way of sending messages over a long distance was invented. It was called the telegraph. It worked by sending electrical signals over a wire. The inventor's name was Samuel Morse. The telegraph machine could send a noise that was like a beep. It could make a short beep or a long beep. Samuel Morse made a code for the alphabet using these short and long beeps. It was called Morse code. Telegraph operators learned the Morse code and could send and translate messages that were sent by the telegraph machine. Now important messages could be sent across the country or across the ocean in less than a day. Next, we can hear what the telegraph machine sounded like. Then inventors worked to make a device that could send the sound of a human voice over an electrical wire. One of those inventors was Alexander Graham Bell. He was the first one to patent the telephone. This is what one of the first telephones looked like. The first phone call was made on March 10th, 1876. Mr. Bell telephoned his assistant, Thomas Watson. He said, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." When it was shown that a telephone could actually work, telephone wires were strung all over our country. By 1888, the first telephones were being placed in homes. At first, only very rich people could afford to have their own telephones. But soon, every home could have a telephone. The first telephones did not have dials or numbers. You had to have an operator connect your telephone wire to the wire of the person you wanted to talk with. Then a numbering system began to be developed to help connect phone wires. Each home would have its own number. The first telephone numbers were very short, only 1 to 3 digits. We still use a 3-digit telephone number today for emergencies. I think you all know it. It's 911. Then telephones that could be used to dial numbers were invented. This movie was made to teach people how to use the dial telephone. By 1940, about 80 years ago, this kind of telephone could be found in nearly every home in America. By 1963, the first push-button phones began to be used. Then phones that were smaller and more portable were being made. You could get long lines for them, so you could even take them into another room to talk. But phones still needed to be connected to a wire to work. In the 1980s, the first cordless phones were being sold. These phones could receive the signal of a person's voice through the air without being attached to a cord or wire. These phones were quite large and costed $4,000. This would be about $10,000 today. You could talk on it for 30 minutes, about a half an hour, and then the battery would need to be charged. It took 10 hours for the battery to charge. Since 1984, the cordless phone has changed a lot. You can see some of the changes here. Communication has changed a lot as well. We can now talk to another person almost anywhere, at any time, in an instant.